Future Islands, people who aren't there anymore, album review, let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest album from Future Islands, Baltimore via North Kakalaki, a synth-pop group. They've been at it for quite some time now. And in their early days when they were putting out projects like Wave Like Home, which people really were quite up in arms about. There's a lot of fans of this album out there. I didn't get it per se. I mean, a lot of the charismatic vocal performances and the wonky use of synths I actually thought were really cool, but a lot of the songwriting I wasn't that into, and the production just left me with a headache on some days. But 2010's In Evening Air started turning me around to their sound. I thought the production on this album was a complete turnaround and actually seriously just pristine. Not to mention the charisma stayed the same, and the songwriting really picked it up as well. I wasn't writing home about this album, I wasn't telling all my friends, but my eyes were much more in their direction. I thought they continued to grow with their next album, On the Water. I mean, personally, I did enjoy most of the album, but I thought they could do something a little bit bigger and a little bit more bolder. But there was a charisma to this band that I was getting to just not be able to shake anymore. And it didn't really shock me that much when the band completely broke out with their next album singles. But this goes a lot deeper of an album than the lead single, the Seasons Change single. No, from start to finish, this is just a really powerful, emotional, and pretty thrilling synth-pop record. There's a lot of great stuff on there. But it was after that I just kind of got a little bit more lukewarm to the band. The Far Field, their next album, I mean, I did name Ran one of my top 5 singles of the year, and The Cave is also really, really good. But there were some holes popping up in the Future Islands sound, and by the end of the album, I just kind of wish they pushed themselves further. And 2020's As Long As You Are, this album really, really shocked me. While the nocturnal vibes of the album and the production, once again, which is really, really good, the energy on this album, the passion, the songwriting was really, really flopping. Honestly, I gave it a pretty lukewarm review at the time. I think I like it even less now. It's pretty shocking stuff. Now, it's been 4 years since we've heard from Future Islands, and they have dropped 5 killer singles from this album, and I've been very excited. And you know what? My excitement has paid off. King of Sweden is a truly awesome opening cut. It's upbeat, it's got that super hypnotic bass riff, it's got these whimsical synths, and Sam Herring right off the bat just sounds on his A game. Now, this was one of the first singles dropped from this album, and I think that's a great choice because this is the kind of track that I wanted to hear them lead the album with. It's emotional, it's upbeat, it's driven, it's got that big hook, and in a lot of ways, it sets the tone for the rest of this album. It's the kind of track that I can't say no to from Future Islands. And, you know, to be honest, this album, not to sugarcoat, is a really, really good one. One of their best, and arguably one of the better breakup records and just heartbreak records I've heard in the last few years. The Tower is a little bit more subdued, but I do really love the visual storytelling on this track. I also just love the whimsical nature of it throughout this track. Now, this is not as big and as bold, as boisterous as this album's lead single, but it is just as passionate, emotional, and heartfelt. Over the years, I mean, that's kind of the name of the game with this band. I mean, I just can't help but get caught up in this track between the storytelling, the heartbreak, the visual lyrics. But it's a really sweet and an empowering track that sticks with you. Now, my first time hearing Deep in the Night, I almost headed for the hills because this sounds a lot like what they were doing in 2020. But even this style of burning, passionate ballad is done so much better, light years better here. It's a steamy, impeccably performed ballad, which is so much room to fall back on. This track is so strong. I love just how gigantic the synths come off and how passionate and fired up Sam Herring comes off in his performance. Also, the production is awesome. The synthy backdrop to this track is beautiful, and honestly, I almost called it my favorite track here. And not only that, but it's a simple yet very powerful statement. With Say Goodbye, the heartbreak is really starting to set in. A lot of these later tracks deal with it. I mean, I'm just going to say this now, and this is kind of obvious, but the passionate performances alone are a major reason to listen to this record. And I think a lot of the magic of this album continues to be just how universal some of the statements are. Not saying that, Sam Herring's songwriting has been, hard to dissect and distant from us in the past, but this album as a whole is something pretty universal. And this track is no different. And once again, it's not as upbeat or as thrilling as some of their early records. But the drive and dedication is here, and that hook just remains the catchiest of the catchy. Also, Gimme the Ghost Back is just as serene and gorgeous from a distance. And yes, that might alienate some. There's a lot of, pretty slow burning tracks here, but once again, the production, it's great. The synthy backdrop is awesome. And this one picks up into almost a post-punk leaning track with a little bit of grit to it too. Hell, it's even a little dark at times, with just hearing a little urgency. I don't know, I needed to hear that right now. But it packs a wallop of a punch, and Sam Herring, who, his vocals have been praised for years, continues to knock it out of the park. Yeah, overall, this album's kind of hitting on all cylinders, at least for me and my taste. Now, there are a few awkward moments about halfway through the album. Like The Thief, for example. This is the first, kind of sore thumb of the record. I mean, for such a big-sounding album as this, because it is very grandiose sounding for most of it, I don't know why this track just sounds so flimsy and awkward all of a sudden. And vocal-wise, easily one of the weakest performances here. Sam just does not sound in his element here. It's really clunky. Yeah, I think it's the worst track here. Also, Iris is no better. Also, very clunky. And yeah, once again, where is this big, bold sound? Because this just kind of sounds like a whimper all of a sudden. And songwriting-wise, too, we are drifting in the direction of cliches, and I almost got worried for the rest of the record. Now, I will say this, performance-wise, Sam does give it his all, and he really does try to up this track. Yeah, the chorus is definitely a bright spot, but outside of that, they did drop the ball here. Outside of that, though, I would argue that not only is this just a really great emotional sort of heartbreak album, and one of the better ones in that vein that I've heard in a few years, I'd argue that this is one of Future Island's best records. Like Corner of My Eye, what a freaking deep cut this is. This is a mammoth of a ballad, and a seriously heartbreaking one. I mean, for one, it is graceful as hell. This instrumental is absolutely gorgeous. And emotionally, this is one of the most moving cuts here, and that's saying something at this point. Once again, if you're not into the slower tracks from Future Islands, the more on-the-rails tracks, you may not like this, and I totally get that, but thinking back to that last album, I would take tracks like this 100 times over. The Fight is another seriously slow-burning ballad. A strong 80s sense on this one, too. But the patience is here. The drama is impeccable. It's charming, it's whimsical, and as emotional and distraught as some of these tracks get, a lot of them have a silver lining at it and end up being just a little empowering at the end of the day, if not completely empowering. It's beautiful on numerous levels. Peach is really good, too. I mean, personally, for me, I needed a cut like this deep in the album. I needed that sort of upbeat anthem style from Future Islands. And we get that here. Not only is this easy on the ears and super inviting, it's really introspective as well. Commendably so. Yeah, as an album whole, this is one of their most complete records, I think. It's playful and sweet, but it's also endearing and really personable. It's great. With The Sickness, they come full circle in their ballads. It's another truly great one. It's elegant, it's charming, there's so much heart on display, you know the drill. And maybe I'm a sucker, maybe I'm going soft, but this album's hitting me hard. And The Garden Wheel is a fantastic finale. I mean, as stunning as the ballads have been here, I wanted a little bit more of a punchy finale, and that's what we get, and it's a great one. Some of the bass work on this track is really just genuinely very cool. Also lyrically, it's just as strong and empowering and emotional as the rest of the cuts here. Yeah, I think it wraps up this album perfectly. Now, for me, this is what I wanted to hear from Future Islands, especially after I've been kind of lukewarm on their last two projects. This is an emotional powerhouse of a record, shockingly so. It is just so well produced, so catchy, so well performed. The emotion from a band that has had a long history of very passionate performances have upped their game for their most introspective album to date. I think as far as heartbreak records go, it's one of the best in years and maybe one of the most complete albums in the Future Islands catalog. Yeah, I'm feeling a very decent 8 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.